we're going to go over the 3 best things you can do to help your dyslexic right off the bat. First 3 things. Let's get started. So first of all, why is it important? Number 1, it's super important to help your dyslexic so that they can start feeling like they have success. It's torture on them to fail day after day and to feel like they aren't as smart as the other kids in the class. These kids are brilliant, they just learn in a different way. So it's important. It's important for their future. It's important for right now, their day-to-day life, so they don't come home from school so frustrated or get so frustrated during their homework time. So here's a few steps that are going to help with that. First of all, no allowed reading in class. This is a common accommodation that a parent can ask for if their child is struggling. Why don't you want them reading in class? It actually will kick in what's called their fight or flight. Now, fight or flight is handled in the lower part of the brain. It's not something they can control. It actually is the part of the brain that activates if they're running from a dog or a bear or something like that. But it actually draws blood down from their prefrontal cortex and the higher parts of the brain that need oxygen and blood in order to read, and it actually pulls it down and into their extremities. It makes them get the cold sweats, it makes their little hands clammy, it makes their heart race, and they'll feel nauseous and sick. So calling on them in class when they aren't a great reader is not a good idea to do. They do not need to do that. I remember being called on in class, and that's exactly how I felt. I remember stumbling through the words and losing my place several times in just one paragraph, feeling like the kids were snickering behind my back, and they were, and it was just super embarrassing and kind of traumatizing. So we need to eliminate that trauma from them and that fear every day when they show up at school. Are we going to be reading aloud in class? That needs to be eliminated. So the first thing you want to do is ask the teacher not to call on your child to read aloud in class. Okay, so the second one is make your time count. Whether you're a child or a teacher or a special ed teacher, I spoke to a professional who is actually a neurologist named Dr. Robert Melillo, who specializes in learning disabilities. And I said, how should we divide our time as far as interventions that actually help the child build better brain connections and reading phonological type practice? How should we divide our time? Like if we only have a half hour with them, how much time should we spend on those 2 things? Should it be 50-50? And he said, no, it should be 80-20, 80% on interventions that will build those parts of the brain that are necessary for reading. We know what they are now. fMRI is out. We know what parts of the brain need to be stimulated now and how to do that. And about 20% of the time working on phonological and reading. So this is really important, and if you don't know some of these exercises or you want to learn a little bit more about them, we have a free 3-part video series I'll link to below so that you can go check that out. The last or third thing that I would recommend is reduce assignment size. This is another thing you as a teacher can do, or you as a parent can ask for, is to reduce their assignment size. Only make them do evens or odds, especially on like a language assignment. These kids often struggle in math too. So math assignments. If it's a reading assignment, let them watch the movie or shorten the amount of reading that they're required. You don't want them to have to come home from school and dread their homework time and then spend 2 hours doing homework. That time should be spent on interventions, things that are building these brain blocks in their head. And so ask the teacher to reduce their assignment size, okay? So you're probably going to say, well, how's the teacher going to feel about these things that I'm requesting? Now, in the classroom, I don't say 80-20. The amount they work on reading and phonics and things like that in class is great. I mean, when you are one-on-one with your class, or you're a special ed teacher and you're one-on-one with this child, then break it up into 80-20. They get a lot of reading and phonics practice in the classroom, and that's how you want it to stay. But when you're working with the child, be sure to do about 80% intervention exercises that will actually build their brain blocks better. So back to the question, how will the teacher feel about this? Surprisingly, quite well. I've found teachers to be super helpful when it comes to things like this. They want to see the child succeed too. They're here to help kids. That's why they went into that industry, and they've seen that your child isn't learning the same way other children are learning. And sometimes in some districts, you actually have to have a label or a diagnosis before the teacher can make accommodations. But in most districts, if the child is struggling reading, you're allowed to go in and ask for accommodations. Okay. But yeah, they're usually pretty cool about that and helpful. So help these kids, get them out there, get them starting to be able to succeed, actually complete their homework at night by fewer assignments, and not fear going to school that they might be called on in class to read aloud, and help them gain back their self-confidence. That's one of the most important things in helping these kids read. So good luck, and I'll put those links below. Oh, also we have a download printable that you can look at that is an example of number one, where to go to get professional testing if you need that, and then some sample questions that show you what kinds of questions and things they will be asking your child to do in those assessments, because it really helps if you're taking your child to do that for them to know what kinds of questions they're going to be asked and things like that. Eliminating the unknown is super important and makes them more willing to show up. So good luck, and I'll put those links below. All right.